This is episode 4. And in this series, we're talking about all kinds of vintage Star Wars stuff. From the 70s, 80s, 90s, into the 2000s, memorabilia. This is all about Star Wars. I really appreciate some of the comments you've been sending lately. One of you pointed out that my 1978, or so I thought, X-Wing fighter actually came out after 78. Maybe around 80-ish, I'm not sure. But the point is, he pointed out some differences in the engines and the intakes, where it actually has the date stamp of 1978, but it doesn't come out then. So if that's true, it blew my mind, and I really thank you, man. Your comments have been great. It is so wonderful to be meeting you guys. You guys that love Star Wars just as much as I do. And tonight, we got some really cool stuff. The Imperial Shuttle, Millennium Falcon, Slave One, vintage figures. I'm Eric, and I'm really glad you're here, and let's go. This is the 1995 Millennium Falcon. You know, I was never blessed enough to get the original one. I really wish I had. But this is the box for it. And up behind me, that is my Millennium Falcon hanging from the ceiling. And as you can see on the back, inside it has an open-up compartment where they play that cool 3D game. It also has a cockpit where you can fit two different figures. It has a fold-down ramp. It has a handle so you can hold on to it. It has two flip-down landing gears in back. But this is a really well-made, it's a really great ship. And, as the box says, it has 4 real movie sounds. This Millennium Falcon is actually really cool. I was recovering from neck surgeries at the time, and I believe that this is one of my big gifts. All right, I'm walking around in a halo brace, and I'm feeling like crap. And my mom and my wife, one of the two, or both, brought me the Millennium Falcon. Of course, I was, 20, 21 years old at the time, and it blew my mind. Because I never got to own the original one. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it was a cost thing, but I think it was more a timing thing. Because again, I was really young when the original Star Wars came out. I started collecting around 80, where I was able to pick up a lot of actually 77 figures and stuff. So I have those, but I was only like 6 years old in 1980. So that prime age, moving up to 9 years old when Return of the Jedi comes out. Along the way, I got a lot of great Star Wars ships. Another one we're going to be talking about in just a little bit in this very episode, my Imperial Shuttle. The Imperial Shuttle is just really cool, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. But for now, just take a look at the Millennium Falcon. It's a really cool toy, and I'm really blessed to have it. And it's been hanging from my ceiling. It took some real engineering prowess. There are 4 fishing lines suspending that one ship from the ceiling you see above my head. So that was, I wanted the right angle, and I wanted to, I worked really hard to get it right. And it took some time, but I got it right, I think. So it's been up there for years, and that's because I can't cut it down. There's no chance I'm going to cut that down unless we're moving out of this place.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
There was a novel called Heir to the Empire, and also from the comics in the Expanded Universe series. This is Mara Jade. In her original box, blue lightsaber, has a blaster. Mara Jade. Of course, a character not found in the original Star Wars series. This one came out in 1998. And it has that fold-down kind of 3D scene that you can make. Of course, I have not done that. I want to keep it in this package and not open it and not tear it all apart. But yeah, Mara Jade, part of the Expanded Universe. I have to admit, I know they're not, quote, canon anymore. That was basically destroyed when Disney got the stuff. They had a big meeting, and J.J. Abrams, J.J. and a bunch of people decided what would be canon and what would not. What would be the official Star Wars line. And at that point, to my knowledge, they scrapped it all. Back when that stuff, quote, did exist in canon. This is Mara Jade from the comics and from Heir to the Empire novel. We all know what a Jawa is. The original Star Wars movie, 1977. 3PO, R2 rolling through the canyons in the depths of Tatooine Desert, and they're run upon by these little guys with these electromagnetic guns, which shocks the droids. They pick up trash and they sell it, basically. They pick up whatever they can and they sell it. That's what they do. That's how Luke's uncle buys R2-D2 and C-3PO from the Jawas. This is an original Jawa. I used to have more of these. Again, like Yoda, kind of small. And I lost a couple along the way, but I do have the original 1977 Jawa. In contrast, this is a 1996 2-pack of Jawas. From the Power of the Force line. 2-pack of Jawas. You can see a scene from the movie on the back. This is what's cool about these figures. By the way, I showed you the 96. This is the 97 model. Slightly different than the 96 model. Okay? Slightly different color cloak. Here's the 97 model compared to the original 77 model, okay? 20 years before this one, 97. This is what's cool. I do like this feature. On the top of their heads is a little, see that kind of rectangle? Watch this. When you put a light, their eyes glow, just like in the movie. So if you have it in sunlight or near a light source, the Jawa's eyes glow. Same with these. See their eyes glowing there? I find that's a pretty cool feature, right? Because it emulates and kind of shows us exactly what we saw in the movie. So again, 1977 Jawa, just this little guy, little arms. I believe he used to have a cloak with him. This is all I have left, but I'm really happy to still have this Jawa. Until the Star Wars prequels came out, Slave One was always Boba Fett's ship. And then all of a sudden, we learn that there's a Jango Fett, Boba Fett's dad. And of course, Slave One belonged to him before that. So, Boba Fett got it from his dad. So the point is, I have 2 versions of this ship. And they're radically different. Both in when they came out and in design. The first one is this. This is a 1996, I believe, if not 98. It's right in that, it's mid to late 90s. This is Slave One, and as you can see inside the cockpit, I've got Boba Fett in there. And as you turn it, the wings actually adjust with the ship. I am missing this piece. It's somewhere in one of my boxes with all my accessories and stuff. So forgive that. And then also it has a removable compartment right here where you can actually take this off, this whole side. You do that because this Slave One was designed, it has a little lever right here, right? And it actually takes Boba Fett, you can see him through there, and it rotates him down, because of course Slave One flies like this, but then it lands like this. If you've seen The Mandalorian, they very much expanded upon this idea and actually added an entire inside for a crew. And you got to know much more of the inner workings of Slave One, which I kind of found cool. I mean, the mystery was gone, but I was okay with that. So once you rotate that down, you can then remove your figure. You can kind of say, I have him buckled in there. And then when he takes off, you can take this little lever again, rotate it up, and he's back in flying position. So that's the Slave One. Again, came out in the late 90s. I do not care for this design. It feels very flimsy, for lack of a better word. There, see what I mean? I can't even get the stupid side panel on. However, in stark contrast, to go with Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, right around the prequel time, they came out with this model. Okay, with the original colors for Slave One, right? Kind of the blues, right? Kind of. And you can see I have a Jango Fett inside here. This cockpit lifts up. It actually just comes off. Anyway, I'll talk about the weak points in a second here. But it has 2 seats, if you will. One here. I have the other Jango without a mask behind him. So I have 2 Jango Fetts in there. And that goes back on. Now this ship, you actually have to turn these manually. They don't exactly turn with the ship. 2 design flaws that I don't care for. The completely removable canopy okay, for the cockpit, and these pieces right here. And I think it was to get in the original boxing, which I have stored somewhere, right, the original box. But these pieces would just come undone all the time. Literally, if you took them off 3 or 4 times, they were done. and meaning like they would not hold place anymore. So earlier today, my son, with his glue gun, with which he makes hundreds of plushes, by the way. He makes toys. My son does. He's very creative. But the point is, he used his glue gun and glued these in for me. So the first time since about 2001, these are nice and sturdy. And if any of you own this, let me know. Drop me a comment. The design difference is radical. This feels like it's 2.5, 3 pounds. This one feels like it's 8 ounces. Just the materials involved, okay? The level of design, the quality of the plastic, it's just, and the paint job. This is just a much better built ship, as a toy. And it's not so much about, again, this doesn't have the this part to come out and everything. That's not there. But of course, that's not something that we saw as much. That's something that Boba Fett utilized. The iconic scene on Cloud City where, he has the floating carbonite Han, and he's loading them up into Slave One, right? That's how he got that stuff in and out. So besides that, it has this missile compartment. There's a button here and back. See this button? You press it, it pops down, and it can launch these missiles right here. In addition, it can actually drop bombs. They come out of this little port right here. Okay, these are little round red balls. See that port right there? And we saw that. In Mandalorian, there's a great scene with Boba Fett, and he has Slave One, and he uses these bombs that explode midair, right? And he takes out several TIE fighters, stuff like that. And of course, we have the traditional laser cannons as well. Both ships have a handle in back, which makes it really easy to hold on to, which is fantastic for a toy. You just grab hold right here, and then you can fly Slave One, as it should be, like that. So again, of the two, and this one had a bunch of stickers that had to be put on. This one is fully painted, okay? It's pre-painted. No stickers that could potentially come off or get worn down. And on the back, you can see that those are actually stickers back here, okay? And this one may have a couple stickers, but this is just a much better build. And it's kind of shocking, right? Late 90s, and just 2 or 3 years later in 01, this Slave One comes out. So again, I'm really cool to have these ships. You can see Boba Fett in here, Jango Fett in here, father and son, Slave One models. Anyway, very cool. I love this ship. It's just unique, and it's weird, and it's very Star Wars. We first saw these characters in Cloud City, Empire Strikes Back. And they were working diligently behind the scenes, either taking apart, fixing, or doing something with droids. We just kind of little worker bees. And of course, I'm speaking of the Ugnaught. This is the original Ugnaught from 1980 with this little toolkit. In contrast, this is from 1998, 2 Ugnaughts with a very similar toolkit, right? Kind of similar. Almost looks like a lunch pail. This one comes with a freeze frame slide. Say that 5 times fast. Freeze frame slide and a toolkit. Couple of Ugnaughts. Flip it around. You can see a scene from the movie on the back. Looks like they're working the mechanisms in the carbonite freezing chamber, that whole room in Empire Strikes Back, where Vader and Luke had their duel. But yeah, this is the 1980s version. Of course, we met and got to speak in Ugnaught in Mandalorian in the very first season, first or second episode, and where the Mandalorian, his ship gets taken apart by Jawas, and of course the Ugnaught takes him to the Jawas, and they negotiate, and he has to go get the egg and stuff. But the point is, we got a deeper dive on Ugnaughts in that part, and we learned that he worked off his indentured servitude, his slavery or whatever, and he was now a free person, and he wanted to give back, and he helped out the Mandalorian. Most of us agree Boba Fett is just a very cool character. until the prequels, he was completely wrapped in mystery. This guy who'd get the job done, a bounty hunter, the guy who trapped, or at least got Han after he was trapped. But, you know, he got Han, he delivers him to Jabba the Hutt. This is a 12-inch figure of Boba Fett. He has blaster, belt. We have Jedi braids here. Okay, on this arm over here, we have a little piece of torn cloth or tunic. In back is jetpack with a missile, of course, allowing him to fly. And I believe, yeah, right here, this will actually launch the missile out. When I press kind of downward on this, it launches the missile out of his backpack like that. So that is kind of cool. And as we learned in The Mandalorian, and I believe they showed this in the Star Wars movies, the original ones, this comes down as like a computerized targeting system. You know, that was the cool part about the Mandalorian series, is that it really expanded and did a deep dive into what the Mandalorian culture is, how their equipment functions, all the tech built into it, right? We know that all this is made of Beskar. You know, one of the hardest metals is laser proof. But also we saw in The Mandalorian that there's tech built into this suit. And then that scene on the hillside where we see Boba Fett do all this cool stuff and he's shooting missiles out of these little things. And this is all built into the suit all along. And we got to see that expanded. But of course we know him mostly from Empire Strikes Back. And then of course he gets killed sort of by accident. He flies into the side of Jabba's sail barge over the Sarlacc pit, and then falls into the Sarlacc pit, and the Sarlacc pit burps afterwards. But yeah, this is just such a cool figure. A 12-inch Boba Fett. But you know, that classic Barbie size, or classic original G.I. Joe size. And then here's his laser blaster. Okay. 12-inch Boba Fett. Remember Return of the Jedi? No, let me say. Remember the original Return of the Jedi before the special edition, or before they were altered to reflect the new sort of retcon history of the prequels, meaning they took the actor from the prequels who played Anakin and put him in as one of the spirits that Luke sees at the end of Return of the Jedi. I remember the original. I remember the Anakin Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. Luke's father, that he looked straight in the eye before he passed away, but knowing that he did everything to protect his son and to attempt to right the wrongs of the past. That redemption story of Anakin, of Darth Vader. I remember that. What I love is this toy, the Jedi Spirits. And as you can see here, this has the 3 spirits from Return of the Jedi before they added the different Anakin into the mix. This toy came out in 1998. However, I have one more thing to show you. As you can see here in this box, okay, right here, okay, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi, his spirit, right next to Yoda. Right next to Yoda and right next to Anakin. But through a mail away, you could not find this in stores. It came in this little box, which I wrote Obi, by the way. I have the entire Cantina Band collection. They came in the same boxes, so that I know which is which. This is the Obi box, but inside, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi spirit. That came only by mail. And I believe came out in 1997 or 98, right around the same time period. You had to mail away for this, okay? Snail mail. Do it that way. You know, like I did with the old Star Wars coins in the past. So this is a 2-parter where I have this 3-pack and then I have this guy, of which I had to mail away. And you can tell it is different, okay? All right, look at the 2 Obi-Wans next to each other. See how they're different? I'm doing really horrible lining these up. I try to think in reverse in real time. Anyway, yes, this is it. And as you can see, this is still mint in box. And what they did is a little kind of coming attraction. You can see coming summer 99, episode 1. So, yes. And again, long before episode 2 was shot, possibly before cast, definitely before we saw the, what's his name? The guy who plays Anakin in the latter 2 movies. You can shout me a comment on that one. I'm trying to think of it. Hayden Christensen. So, long before Hayden Christensen replaced him digitally, don't like it, we had, of course, this. The original Obi-Wan and the original Anakin Skywalker and Yoda, who all kind of gave Luke a good job, boy. Thanks for saving the galaxy. We first saw this droid in 1983 in Return of the Jedi. This is AD-8. Very short scene as at least Chewie's walking by down in the dungeons of Jabba's palace. And this guy is branding. Do you remember? Okay. This brand is coming down in the little droid. He's waving his feet and he's screaming. I didn't know they had pain sensors. But what's cool is this is the Power of the Force version, which comes with the branding. You can kind of see the difference here. There we go. Power of the Force 88. And there, kind of look from the front. Now, back in 83... I got the playset. This is Jawa's Dungeoun playset. You can see it has the whole branding thing here, okay? To put the brand on the feet or on a droid. And he's working the controls down in Jawa's dungeon. Okay, it has a ramp right up here. And then some kind of, whatever this is down here. Oh yeah, it even has a peg built in. Here we go. Let's put him on one of the pegs. Alright, so he's working. I love the little hole pegs for the feet. They do come in handy sometimes. He's down here branding droids. That way, I assume they know that they're Jabba's property. So yeah, this is just a simple little playset. I never used it much, but it did come in handy once in a while. It's not like I want to repeat that scene over and over again. I mean, what's the point? But yeah, playset, original 88. And then, of course, in contrast to the playset, we have the Power of the Force version. And this one came out in 98. Okay, so 1983 and 1998. 88. You can see, oh, there it is right there. He's about the brand of feet of the little droid. Okay. Many Yodas. Let me try again. Many Yodas. I'm trying to do a Yoda accent. Many Yodas I do have. Why did I even attempt that? All right, guys, this is Yoda. I have 5 Yodas to show you. 95, 98, 80, 95, 98, and 2001. Okay, let's start with the oldest first. These are both from 1980. 2 different versions. As you can see, this one comes complete and is complete. I don't have, of course, the box for him, but I do have a card back somewhere. But yes, he has his cane, the snake, his little utility belt, his cloth cloak. Okay. Of course, the holes that the little hexagon at the bottom that they always have. And so yeah, there's another one from 1980 with the red kind of brown eyes and a different kind of lighter skin tone. And I don't have the full getup for this one. But yeah, these are vintage 1980 original that came out with Empire Strikes Back Yoda. In comparison, this one came out in 1995. Comes also with a cane, of course, 1980, 1995 for the Power of the Force. It has the backpack, so you can put it on Luke, of course. This is Yoda from 95. 3 years later, this is 1998. Okay, they're all about the same size. Looks like a lot more detail in the wrinkles and face here, okay? A little attempt at some real looking hair and back, okay? This one has paint, and it has a plastic tunic, unlike the original cloth tunic. Once again, in comparison, 95, and this is the 98. Very similar, okay? Very similar. And then, fast forward to 98 versus 2001 for, of course, Episode 1. This is the Yoda that we saw sitting in the chair in the Jedi Council, and there's a lot of scenes there in Episode 1 and you know, in the prequels, okay? Yoda, you can see his little blue chair here. And this one came out in 01. Of course, it comes with that COM chip, the ComTech chip that works with the reader. You can see it right here on the back, okay, along with other toys as well. So again, Yoda 2001, Yoda 1998. Lots of Yodas you have. And then, that was actually better. Yoda 1995. And then all the way back to Yoda, the original OG. The original Yoda from 1980. So, very cool. You know, this is the one figure that I picked up many, many years ago on eBay. Because as a kid, I lost 2, maybe 3 Yodas. Look how bloody big it is. All right, you're a kid. You're playing. You're outside playing wherever. You know, and sometimes I did. I played Endor and I played Hoth. But wherever I was playing, you know, doing different scenes from the original movies, if I took them outside, sometimes crap happened, or a friend comes over and steals one. Who knows? And then one time, let me digress, and I want to tell you the story. Elementary school. I'm in 5th or 6th grade. And my Star Wars collection at that point was quite large. All right? Got the B-Wing. I got the Scoutwalker. I've got the X-Wing. I've got the Imperial Shuttle. I have all these different things. Plus, at that point, I probably had 40 plus Star Wars figures, okay? From the original lines. And the librarian who did displays, okay, on top of the bookshelves, which lined our elementary school library, you know, that about 5-6 feet in the air, she would do different collections, you know, from people around town. She's like, why don't you bring your Star Wars collection in? And I did. And I don't know how many figures I lost along the way. Because on top of those shelves, okay, got all these bookshelves around the library, I lined up all my figures, okay? You know, I got a Jawa up there, got my Gamorrean Guards up there, and then who knows how much crap was stolen from me. I have no idea how much was taken from me. I know I had all my ships left over, but little things like this could easily be pocketed, and I think were. And I may have lost 3 to 6 figures. Well, let's call it 5. I lost about 5 figures from my library display. You know, again, we all make mistakes. So once again, Yoda, 1980. This is 98, 95 Yoda, and then 2001 Yoda. It is a really cool figure, and of course, I had to go to eBay and get one just to replace it. As an adult, I didn't feel complete without having a couple Yodas in my collection. I just realized that when I made the image behind me in Photoshop, which has no spell correction, sometimes that is where I meet my doom, I wrote metal, not metal. I mean, it's right here on the bloody box. Metal with a T, and I wrote a D. Yeah, you're welcome. Back in the 90s, Dark Horse Comics made at least 6 episodes, comic books, of Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I have Star Wars figures from that, I have a comic book, and I have several other cool things from Shadows of the Empire, including I have the Nintendo 64 game. But one of the things I picked up along the way is this. A metal tin with Shadows of the Empire. And as you can see, it says right on the front, embossed metal collector cards. There you go. 1997. Inside this metal box, there are only 6, but 6 metal playing cards. It comes a little insert where they're held inside. And this one is entitled Prince Zizor's Plan Revealed. You can see Luke, and you can see Leia, and Lando, and Chewie, and Vader, and C-3PO, and R2-D2. This was entitled Rescue Attempt. I believe that may be Boba Fett, and even Yoda in this one. Sorry, they're still in their pack. I'm not going to open these up. They're still wrapped. This one is called Wanted, Luke Skywalker. You see Luke fighting off probably some bounty hunters sent by Prince Zizor. This one's called Leia. She meets Prince Zizor. Okay. By the way, there's the back. Like a scene from the comic book. Just to backtrack some. All right. There's the back of that one. Plan revealed. Rescue attempt. Wanted Luke Skywalker. The next one. The trap is set. See Luke fighting for his life as they've laid a trap for him. And finally, this one's called Han Delivered. You see Jabba, you see Boba, you can see Prince Zizor, you can see Vader lurking, menacing in the background. Han Delivered. And it looks like there's actually a frame from the comic book in there. So this is just a cool little collectible that I picked up along the way. My goodness, almost 30 years ago. 6 metal trading cards from Shadows of the Empire. There was a faceless character that looked really cool because he had vibrant colors. They had vibrant colors. Return of the Jedi, on the Death Star, in the throne room, always around to protect the Emperor. And of course, I speak of the Emperor's Royal Guard. This is the original 1983 Emperor's Royal Guard. You can see his cloth, okay? A couple layers of cloth over its uniform. It has that kind of iconic, cool-looking mask. In contrast, this is a 1997 model, Power of the Force. Gone is the cloth, replaced by plastic. It has its staff with it. And I also have a staff. All these figures that I'm showing you on camera, I'm leaving their weapons and their staffs and all that kind of stuff aside. I'm just showing you the figures. That's why they're not here. As you can see, it's pictured behind me. But yeah, original one, 1983, Emperor's Royal Guard. And then, of course, the Power of the Force version with the gold label, as you can see on there. It looks like they're calling it a Force Pike. That's what its staff is called, a Force Pike. On the back, you can see a picture of the guards from Return of the Jedi. Picture from the movie. Looks like, yeah, they're coming off the Imperial Shuttle. Emperor Royal Guard.
If you only knew the power of the dark side, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. I am your father.
And from Force Awakens, I did pick up a few figures along the way. I got Finn, and I got Rey, and I got Poe. I never got anything from Last Jedi or Rise of Skywalker. I didn't really care. But I did want to mark that point in time and get a couple of figures, one of which is Finn. This is Finn, and like Rey and Poe, it comes with some kind of weird accessory that really has nothing to do with the movie, and it folds out into some kind of contraption that goes on his back. It says Finn from Jakku. So yeah, this is Finn, Stormtrooper, wearing Poe's jacket, as you know, from Force Awakens. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm glad I have a couple figures just to mark that point in time. But, anyone want this? Just kidding. I've mentioned before that my wife was very enthusiastic about getting collectible Star Wars plates, these by the Hamilton Collection. They're now 30 years old, and I don't know what they're worth, and that doesn't really matter to me. My Star Wars stuff is not for sale. It is priceless. I hope to hand it to one of my children, if not a couple of them, in the future, when the time is right. Until then, this is my stuff. But this one, of course, continuing this, is the Imperial Shuttle. Okay, we just talked about the toy. It's actually the artwork on these plates is, quite stunning, because it's both realistic and, it's somewhat surreal, of course, impressionistic as well. And as you can see on the back, Imperial Shuttle, where it's hand, you can see the plate number where there's a certain amount of firings, there's a certain amount made by the Hamilton collection. This is not the most manly thing in the world, I know that. But knowing that my wife thought it was cool, knowing that my wife knew I loved Star Wars, that it gives it like that kind of weight of meaning. And plus, my goodness, the artwork on these is just quite stunning, and they are quite beautiful and very unique. It's not like you run into this stuff, if toy stores still existed, at a local toy store. So again, Imperial Shuttle by the Hamilton Collection came out in 1995. One of the greatest presents I ever got for Christmas was the Imperial Shuttle. It's Christmas, and there was a giant box on the floor. And of course, my imagination's going crazy, and it's sitting by the tree, and I see my name on a little tag. Right? I get up really early that morning, 5, 6 o'clock, and it's still dark, but the Christmas tree is lit, and those tiny little Christmas bulbs are casting their little beams of light onto this giant box that says, Eric. Imagine my surprise when I open up and I lean back and I take it in and I'm like, I have an Imperial Shuttle. It blew my mind. Because of all of the vintage Star Wars ships, this is the one of which I'm most proud, because it is massive and it is ridiculous. And the design, I mean, straight out of the movie. And of course, the iconic scene where the Imperial Shuttle, this very thing, flies in to one of the landing bays under the Death Star. And all the smoke and steam are coming out, and the ramp comes down, and out walks Vader. Later on, the Emperor arrived kind of the same way. All these troops and guards are lined up, and Vader's walking along, and he's having that conversation with one of his lieutenants or generals or admirals, and I think it was an admiral. And he's like, he's telling him the Emperor's coming, right? And he's like, the Emperor's coming here? Yes. And he's like, well, we should double our efforts. Well, I hope so, for your sake, Commander. The Emperor will be very displeased at the lack of your, so he's talking and giving a dressing down. So great, right? We shall double our efforts. I hope so, Commander. But they came right off the Imperial Shuttle, and I owned that toy. And then later that morning, I'm flying it around the living room, because the Imperial Shuttle, underneath, okay, because, it's basically this kind of big, like a Mitsubishi, or like this triangle made out of 3 points, and it has a handle underneath, and it has a trigger, and that trigger allows you to retract and open the wings. And of course, my ship is hanging from the ceiling, another engineering feat, just like Millennium Falcon, where I used at least 4 fishing lines bolted to the ceiling, wrapped around strategic parts of the shuttle. That way it can hang in my office, where it's been for years. Underneath, of course, it has the handle. It has 2 flip down landing gears that are the same length as the handle. So when the wings come up like this to meet the big middle wing like that, it can actually land on those 3 points. It has a cockpit for 2 figures, which can open up and you can put the figures inside. You can open it up and you can see part of a cargo crew area, if you will. In back, it held batteries where it could make sounds. It has laser cannons, but this toy is just super cool. I'm still impressed that I have it. Not in an egotistical way, I just can't believe I have the Imperial Shuttle. Because it's one thing to have an X-Wing, it's one thing to have a Scout Walker, or I have a B-Wing, and I have all these vintage ships. But there's something about the Imperial Shuttle. In Jabba's palace, the first guys you met when that giant door comes up slowly to that front corridor, that passageway that takes you to Jabba. And Jedi Luke in his cloak, and he waves them off using the Force, right? Or I believe he may actually choke one of them. Of course, I'm speaking of the Gamorrean Guard. I have 3 of them. I wish I had 3 of other figures, but somehow I have 3 original 83 Gamorrean Guards. In contrast, This is a Gamorrean Guard from 1997. You can see that they changed the design some. Not a ton. Kind of slightly different color palette with his clothes there. Very similar otherwise. Darker armor on his shoulders and forearms. Okay. More protruded kind of pig-like face. And of course, that matches really well the 1983 photo from Return of the Jedi. Gamorrean Guard. Yes, these are the guys from Jabba's palace. You know, of my figures from the 90s, I have a lot of them, of course, mint in box. I've shown you a bunch of them. Why and how this one yellowed, that can happen, as you well know, a lot of you guys, that the plastic can yellow over time. I'm wondering if this was more exposed and more of an open box. I don't know. For many years, I kept rows and rows and rows and rows. I mean, I must have 150 from the 90s. Power of the Force line, stuff like that. I got a lot. And my kids through the years, they knew that there was an entire play store, an entire toy store in their attic. My little boys, they were both around the same age, both very young. And of course, me wanting to be super dad, I'd go up into the attic and I'd bring them down a figure and I'd bring them down another one, another one. And now I have a board of them and I'm slowly trying to incorporate. I kept all the backs and the plastic parts to them so I can put them back together someday. So I have a box of card backs, these, and loose figures zip ties to a board. I had so many mint in box at one time until I had kids. That's still worth it. I love my boys. They're awesome. So yes, Gamorrean Guard with the yellowed plastic. And luckily, most of my figures from this era, about 30 years ago, have not yellowed like this one. I'm going way too long about the yellow. So yes, 1983 original Gamorrean Guard. Remember that scene, Obi-Wan Kenobi talking to Luke Skywalker? It's a den of scum and villainy. And Luke's like, oh, I'm prepared for anything. Cocky little guy. And they go down in a Mos Eisley. And then, of course, the Cantina bar. I mean, that's what I'm calling it. But within that bar, this is Kabe and Muftak, whatever. These are two guys. Little rat face and the guy with a little dangly bit underneath his chin. It's tiniest little parts. This guy was at the bar, and we saw this guy, I believe, at one of the other tables inside the Cantina bar. I didn't know it was ripped on top. All right. Anyway, this is still a sealed box. Muftak and Kabe. You know in that scene, of course, right? Greedo comes over to the table. And later on, we learn that Greedo shot first. But no, Han dispatched that guy. He did not want to be taken in. Soon thereafter, of course, Obi gets a tip. And he learns of a brash young smuggler. And a big hairy thing next to him, of course, Chewbacca. And they have that conversation. He's like, oh, she's fast enough, the Millennium Falcon. She'll do the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. That awesome scene, right, where they hire Han. And Han thinks that this is his ticket. He's got the money now to pay off Jabba. There won't be a bounty on his head. He never knew. He'd soon turn into a freedom fighter himself. But yes, in that very bar, where those cool scenes happened, there were 2-bit characters nearby. And this is the box from 1998 of those two characters, Kabe and Muftak. Does the name Malakili ring any bells? Anyone? Malakili. Star Wars. Okay, I'll help you. Return of the Jedi. Closer. How about Jabba's palace? Any takers? Rancor monster? Okay, it's the Rancor Keeper. For some reason, Malakili is his name. I had no idea until I had this figure. Because he's just this fat guy who takes care of he's the keeper of the Rancor monster. And what do we remember? Him weeping after Luke took care of and killed the Rancor monster. That's always... he's crying as that's his scene. That's the one scene. That actor got to weep and be fat on camera. I shouldn't have said that. So anyway, yes, this is 1983 Malakili. And if you watch, I think, episode 2 or 3 in one of my other episodes, just look for the thumbnail. I show my original Rancor monster. But yes, this is the Rancor Keeper, and he has a staff, and I have it in the other room. And then this is the 1997 Power of the Force Malakili. You see some more definition to his body in pants and boots. Really, most of them has changed drastically. And then here's a scene. That's him from the movie, the Rancor Keeper. It was such a bit part. It was literally only a few seconds long. We just got over an exciting scene. But by the way, the fact that they pulled that off with technology back then, the way they mixed together because that was just stop motion. When they shot the scene for the Rancor monster, they made a Rancor pit, I don't know, this big-ish. The Rancor monster, I believe, was about yay big, 1-2 feet. And of course, it's stop motion, right? They moved it one frame at a time. And then they were able to mix that with the live-action Luke and a Gamorrean guard down there. Of course, they had a big arm to pick up Luke, and Luke puts the bone. Anyway, it was really well done for that era. And you all remember the scene, but afterwards, and someone's kind of consoling him as he realizes his monster is dead. Poor Malakili. Poor Malakili. This has been episode 4 of the Star Wars Celebration series. Episodes 1 through 3 are also right here on my channel. There's a bonus episode as well. Next time, we're going to do a B-Wing from 1995, an X-Wing Darth Vader's TIE Fighter, and I have Kylo Ren's TIE Fighter, which is super cool, by the way. That is the one thing I wanted from The Last Jedi, is that really sweet TIE Fighter. I want to show it to you guys. Guys, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't done so, please hit the subscribe button, and you'll be notified when those new episodes come out. For all of you who have subscribed, who've been with me for a couple of years now, and who have you just joined the family here at the Loudboy Experience, thank you. I really appreciate it. Our community and the things that we love, these bind us together. Our conversations in the comments, please leave them. Tell me about your collection. Tell me what you think about mine. And any questions you might have, please let me know. If there's anything you want me to show in the future, I'd love to hear that as well. I have a ton more vintage figures to show you, board games, and all kinds of really cool Star Wars stuff. The collection is massive, and there's a lot more to show you, so more episodes are coming. So stay tuned for those. Guys, as always, I am Eric. This is the Loudboy Experience, and may the Force be with you.